Hello, I'm Nicholas from Northlane, and this is my live drum kit, brought to you by Dan Mayo. So, there's a couple of things going on here. A couple of new things. But I'll talk about them later. So we've got cymbals, a plethora of cymbals, Sabian cymbals over here. We'll go from closest to the camera to furthest from the camera. We have the AAX Aero Crash, has holes all through it. Nice cymbal. Then we have some, this is a new addition, cymbal wise. We have the techno hats. We call them the techno hats because we use them for the electronic songs. They're not even hi-hats. This is a 16-inch XSR Ozone Crash. And then on the bottom it's an XSR 16-inch Crash. I actually don't know if it's a rock crash. Then we have an AAX Explosion, 18-inch, 12-inch HHX Splash, 10-inch HHX Splash, 19-inch AAX Explosion, 20-inch AAX Explosion. Over here we've got some 13-inch Evolution HHX hats. And then the God cymbal, the 21-inch Holy China. Everyone knows this one already. Now, the drum kit is the TAMA Bubinga Star Classic. Beautiful drum kit, stunning drum kit. We have Remo heads. We're using clear P4s on all toms. We have 2 snare drums for 2 different tunings. The low snare drum, which is on here at the moment, has a controlled sound coated head on it, whereas the high one has a P77 coated. We're also using resonant rings on the snare drum just to shorten the tail, the decay, make it a little bit more controlled. The snare drums themselves are evetts Nick Patterson signature snare drums. That's right, 2 of them. I'm very lucky. I'm using Iron Cobra double pedals, power glides, Iron Cobra hats, Vader Power 3As. I've also got a second set of hats, which is just some 14-inch freak hats. They're pretty cool too. Now, to the latest addition, bar the techno hats, is all the Roland triggers we've got. We've also got this Roland TM6 Pro trigger module. Now, we're using the triggers on the toms just for gates. We're not actually triggering anything with them. But for the snare drums and the kick drum, we're triggering samples that are layered over the acoustic drums live for some of the songs, the more like electronic songs. We're using different samples layered on top of them, which is pretty cool, pretty new. Works pretty well for those electronic songs, especially for the kick drum. I think that's it. Is that it, Dan?
That's it. Hey, I'm Dan, and I look after Nick's drums while we're on this tour. Here's my little station. I set up right next to Nick's kit. Basically, my job is to, well, firstly set up the kit, and then from that point, just keep Nick as comfortable and keep everything rolling as much as we can. So whether it's just fixing bits that fall down or whatever it might be, and then the last run, and we've sort of been doing it ever since, we've been doing some snare swaps and some hi-hat swaps. So just throughout the set, when the time comes, run up there with my little head torch and do a little swap over. And that's basically it.
G'day, I'm Dylan. I'm front of house for Northlane, and today I'm going to show you through the front of house rig that we've got set up, which consists of the band's Allen and Heath D Live console and a bunch of other little bits and pieces that we have going on for processing. So we're effectively using the console as 2 mixing consoles for the band. I run front of house for the band out of the console, but we also run all of the band's in-ear monitors out of the rig as well. So effectively we've got two sections of the console that are split. One contains the channels just for front of house, and then the other half contains the channels just for the in-ear monitors. And then the band will have control of that on stage through the iPad and that kind of stuff, and I've built in different layers into the surface that allow me to flick between whether it's a front of house layer or whether it's an in-ear monitor layer. So in addition to what's going on in the console, I do have a lot of processing going on outside of that. And primarily the digital transport that we're using to do that is Waves sound grid. So it's basically a low latency method of digital communication for audio. And so signals come out of the console using sound grid, and then they go to two different paths. If I'm using Waves as the processing path, so where I use Wave Super Rack to house the Waves plugins, there's also a Wave sound grid server inside the rack that processes, does all of the DSP signal processing, and then spits it back into the console. For Universal Audio, their live rack that I've got here actually uses MADI as the transport protocol. So also inside the rack, there's a lot of things going on in this tiny little rack. There's a DigiGrid MGO which converts that sound grid protocol to the MADI protocol, which allows me to go through and process things on the UAD platform and then spit it back into the console. So mainly a lot of the subgroups are being processed through Universal Audio plugins. And I've got 16 racks of plugins, or up to 16 channels of plugins that I can run over parts of the console. And you'll see normally that I'm running generally some stuff over the kick group, so the kick in and out of group together and they're processed. Same with the snare group, toms, guitars, a little bit of vocal processing, mainly for kind of preamp. Use some of those really nice preamp emulations that UAD have. And then a master bus chain as well also runs through this. So yeah, busing kind of in and out of the console into that. In addition, I run some Waves plugins for vocal processing and some kind of crazy effects like distortions and vocoders and those kinds of things really help to define and add some extra dynamic to Marcus's vocals. And then in addition, you know, some of the really handy tools that Waves have, such as PSE, which primary source expander essentially acts as a little bit of a gate to filter out some of the on-stage sound from the drums and that kind of stuff to get a little bit more clarity out of the vocals and a little less spill. In addition to that, I do have a bit of kind of automated processing going on in the background, which I'm using QLab to do. And what QLab will be doing is reading timecode that the band sends into the console. It waits for that signal. Once it receives the timecode, it's going to spit out a bunch of cues to the console to change certain things that I've set up through the scenes window. The kinds of things that I'm triggering here are things like delay on, delay off, you know, band level up and down, you know, automated vocal mutes and reverb mutes and those kinds of things. So as an example, as I start kind of firing some of these cues, you're likely to see, you know, some faded movement and that kind of thing going on. You know, some of these cues will light up some of the touch screens and buttons and that kind of stuff that we have here, and these things all fire automatically as the band plays through the song, just to take a little bit of the weight off the mix. When I mix this band, there's quite a lot of things going on and moving around. There's a lot of dynamic throughout the songs. That helps to take some of the brain power away from that, so I can kind of focus on doing a lot of the creative stuff and the balancing that's going on. Cool, so that's pretty much an overview of the Northlane setup that we've been running with for this tour.
So we've got the SE V7 here. Usually I use a wireless version of it, but this will do for now. And yeah, that's the gear rundown, the rig rundown. Thanks for watching.